Are we here? We are. Isn't that a bit early? Never mind. I'm glad you're here. We're about to start Sweet and Sour. We have an A-lister group of people for you tonight. They're our best performers. Well, we've got more than them who are our best performers, but every single one of them is a full hit. And they'll be addressing these letters. Are you ready? First one, it's simply an observation that seems to be echoed by so many who travel to the States. What's that about? The manners of our kids. Far more polite in the States, apparently. Second letter tonight. Nowadays, these are just full of sensationalised gotcha stories. All the tabloids. Yep, fake news. And the last one tonight. Imagine if people lived for 1,000 years, what would life be like? Yeah, I don't know so much. Because, you know, the people who are running around persecuting people and burning witches at the stake would still be running the joint, wouldn't they? At least. All these letters together with a whole bunch of terrific A-lister talent on the panel right now. Don't go away. Sweet and Sour starting right now.
Got a problem, big or small, would a miracle be nice? Our motley crew is back, churning out advice. You might even laugh a bit in the following half hour. Park your backside on the couch, cause baby it's time for Sweet and Sour.
Good evening everyone. Welcome to Sweet and Sour. Lovely to have your company. Gary Mitchell with you for the next fun-filled half hour, and my mates are back. First up, as he was last week. Hello, Bid.
Hello.
You're back here, mate.
I have. I spent the whole week taking my earrings out.
I noticed. How come?
Yeah. That's taking... Oh, look, well, I had to do something, you know.
Is that the first time I've ever seen you without your earrings?
I think so.
The first time I've seen you without your earrings.
Is there something we're commemorating by taking them out?
No, I just had to fill in the time till I have no friends.
He's the one, eh?
Well, good to see,
as Suzie reminded me last week, I have no friends, so
Hello,
I had to do something.
Hello.
Hello. How many earrings have you got on for us tonight?
These beautiful little ones to match the circles of my owls.
Love your top. Oh, very appropriate. They're owls. That's right. Wise,
Very wise
sagely
words.
advice. All right, smarty.
Wise.
LOUANNE, what are you wearing for us tonight?
Pink.
We like pink.
We like pink bits.
Pink. Oh, welcome to the show. How did you go last week when you were chatting in the morning? You had to wake up early in the morning. Was that fun?
Yeah, the funnest bit was, I said to one of my staff, I really need you to come. And she said, are you joking? I went, no. So she said, so she actually had to come. She said, but that's like at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
You have to be all ready.
Was she all ready?
She was all ready.
She was all ready. Another person who's always ready. Hello, H.
Hey Gary, how you going?
I'm all right, mate. What's happened to the market now?
Oh well, the Royal Commission is still going on, but that's all right. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter?
No, because the banks have got the money, and we need the banks so we can get the money.
After the Royal Commission and whatever they put in place, do you think it's all just going to revert back to where it was?
Yeah, I think there's some good changes coming out. I think it'll actually be better.
Enough?
It'll be better. It'll be better for everyone. It'll be more accountability for everybody.
All right, well, let's see if we can make it better for the people who've written into us tonight as well. First one from Felicity of Kew in Victoria, and she writes, Dear Mitch, for those who haven't travelled, it's quite difficult to imagine how other nationalities' behaviour is different to our own in a local setting. Being fortunate enough to travel through the United States regularly with business colleagues, we seem to be of one mind with regards to the social aptitude of US children and young adults, and that is in comparison to our kids. Those who grow up in the States seem to have more confidence in communication, and because of this, always seem to display courtesy and manners way beyond our children. Don't get me wrong. I would never live in the States, and this observation isn't made to demean our kids. It's simply an observation that seems to be echoed by so many who travel to the States. So my question to your panellists is, what do you think we should do to make our children more confident to speak up and speak well? It's certainly true that if we have an awareness that we can speak well, we will speak up, and coupled with an understanding of courtesies, we also know we won't offend. It's circular, as it also builds confidence. My own kids are a case in point. They're great kids, but the moment they became teenagers, they forgot to use please, thank you, and excuse me. Instead, they grunt instructions at one another. I'd also be keen to know if this is your experience as well. As I said, Felicity of Kew in Victoria. Lou, we're going to you first. What's your experience?
Okay, children don't know anything that they haven't been taught. Okay, so
Got to come from
confidence,
somewhere.
Yeah, it's a learned skill, and emotional intelligence is such an important part of schooling, yet it's not taught in our schooling systems. So, you know, we look at our children and we're teaching them what we have been taught, and if we haven't been taught, you know, by our parents, we can't pass that on. They're not learning it in school. So, you know, having a high emotional intelligence is the key to, you know, having your confidence.
Are you telling me that our convict past has actually surfaced in a comparison between the US kids and Australian kids?
Yeah, pretty much. But really, it just showcases you having confidence is something that you need to learn. And being
It is, isn't
taught
it? It's a skill.
the difference between using just please and thank you, but why using please and thank you? Because it's seducing people to getting what you want. And, you know, we need to learn this. We need to teach it to our kids, and there needs to be programs, not just resilience programs in schools, but programs to teach people better communication, because that stems throughout the whole of their life.
Yeah. It's that English skill. It's all about communicating, isn't it?
Communication, absolutely.
H, what's your take, mate?
I just always lead from the front. Is that just be polite and people will catch on to it.
Be
In
the
return,
change you want.
Be the change you want. And and if you know if someone is disrespectful or impolite, just bring it to their attention and say you could have. You know, you could have said hello, or you could have said thank you. You could have just had some better manners.
Be on the front foot. Just let them know wherever you see
I mean,
it.
it's very hard these days. Those characters are like Audrey Hepburn. They're rare and far between, and you know.
They are. All right,
just-
Bid, where are we?
Felicity, I don't entirely agree with you. I think that often American children appear more confident, but it doesn't make them better informed. Americans are wonderful people, but they're incredibly insular. And I imagine that young Americans mirror that. That's been my experience. And yes, when you go to America, there's this veneer of courtesy and manners. Americans on their home turf are very welcoming and warm, but you only need to scratch that surface and it's really quite brittle. They can be quite harsh and instantly aggressive, and you only got to look at their popular culture, their foreign policy and their politics at the moment to see what that's like. As far as what we can do in Australia, H and Louanne have said it. I think that the standard that you walk past is the standard you accept, so you mirror the behaviour that you want to see. But teenagers were ever thus. Just because they don't mouth the words doesn't mean they don't get the concept of respect. That's really what you're teaching them.
Susie?
Oh, well, Felicity, I have to bring it down here. Sorry. Grunters, Felicity, are universal. I think that because when you travel, a child is talking to you, you think, oh, aren't they fantastic? Like all of our teenagers. They all speak beautifully to other adults, except to their families and to the people that know them. So I would suggest, after backpacking through America, and I've been to America quite a few times, that in fact, children, or often, you know, they have too much confidence. And there is a limit to confidence. You can have too much confidence, but I think, to be honest with you, grunters are universal. And, you know, it doesn't actually matter. My kids are probably absolutely fantastic when they're talking to other adults. People tell me that, which is amazing, because they grunt at home. So, you know, I really do. I think their grunters are universal. I think those American kids are grunting when they go home and to their mates.
Are they better communicators?
I think they say a lot of words, but are they authentic, and are they knowledgeable, and are they informed? I don't agree. I don't think so.
Well, we asked our viewers at home to answer this question for us, and it reads, are Australian kids polite like USA kids? Let's have a look what you said. And the answer is
Yes.
68%. Yeah, most of them are pretty polite.
Yep.
And 32%, that's your fault. They're your kids you're talking about. When we come back, we're going to look at fake news. Again, it comes up often from our letter writers. Interesting. Don't go away. More of Sweet and Sour. See you soon. Ooh.
It's time for Sweet and Sour. Right here on Sweet and Sour.
Welcome back to Sweet and Sour, and if you'd like to send us a letter and have it chatted by the A-listers who we have tonight and subsequent... Yeah, another coffee please, guys. Send it to one of these contact addresses appearing on your screen right now. It'll land here, and we will then tear it apart. And for every letter that we do happen to read out, we're going to send you to the movies courtesy of Natalie Cameron and NRC Communication. And Natalie is sending you to see Overlord this week. And who saw it? Last week somebody told me somebody saw it. Who was it?
I think it was
Suzie. They can't remember.
I can't remember.
Oh, OK. We'll chat amongst it during the break. Hello, Sweet and Sour. I'm suddenly aware that all this fake news has been around for years. You think? I picked up a magazine at my parents' place the other day to read that George and Amal Clooney are divorcing. Really? Harry and Meghan, oh, sorry, it's Meghan, I've been corrected,
Oh, yes, Meghan.
are in a spat with the Queen, and so many other things that simply turn out to be complete fabrications. No wonder so many publications are taken to court for defamation. What I don't understand is that these publications like Women's Day, People magazine, there you go, we've named them, were credible reads about 10 years ago. Nowadays, these are just full of sensationalised gotcha stories aimed at just selling, because apparently sensational stories do just that. But who keeps buying these rags apart from my parents to keep these fraudsters going? My folks always feel completely disappointed that their news turns out to be fake. Please tell me what I can watch or pick up now that might have some skerrick of the real news. It's a pandemic, and it comes to us from Maria in North Lakes in WA. Bid. Some experience here, sir.
Look, sadly, Maria, there has always been fake news. Remember the Gulf of Tonkin incident in 1964, where America used an attack on a warship by North Vietnamese to escalate that war. No such incident occurred. 2013, Colin Powell's speech to the UN about weapons of mass destruction, no such weapons of etc., etc., etc. It's always been true. But the difference is that today's fake news is more about the failure of commercial mainstream media to do its darn job. When media fails to do that, then that vacuum is filled by nonsense, spin, opinion and increasingly infotainment, which is what you're talking about. I resigned from the Journalists Union after about 40 years of service on this very issue, citing exactly this. In my opinion, journalism as we knew it is dead. Newspapers the world over are in decline. Radio is largely rip and read from single source. Television news, commercial television news, is a disgrace and arguably started this decline. And we don't know what the new paradigm will be, but it'll be something to do with online media, which is fraught. So I could go on and on and on, but I won't. But you ask, Maria, where do you look for real news? The answer is nowhere and everywhere, because the more sources you look at, the more chance you have of finding a reliable source. The better you have a chance of getting to the truth of it.
Good on you, Bit. Suzie, where do you get your news?
Oh, well, no, I wanted to go back. Credible reads. When were these magazines ever credible reads, Moira? But a great laugh when you are waiting at the doctors to have a pap smear, and that's where they all are.
That's what I read all the time.
And, so when you're waiting to have a pap smear or a breast examination, you know, some boring
you
crap.
pick up the Woman's Day,
you piss her and you read this shit and you go, this is just such bullshit. How hilarious is this? But I do feel terrible for the people that it is bullshit about. But I would say, where do I find my news? I actually read a whole lot of different papers. And my concern about what you're saying is that if it's online, my kids get their news from Facebook, and it is so restricted and narrow, so they also are being drawn into this sort of web of fake news.
Are they interested in the news?
They don't read the paper. They will come to me and tell me news because they've seen it on Facebook, but so they think that that is the news.
And it is.
But it's not all the news, and it's not expanded.
Well, do we get all the news?
Well,
Can we read all the news?
I love news, but I read a lot of papers.
I love news. Lou, do you do news?
No.
You don't do news?
Oh, news.
What do you do?
News. I thought you said something else.
No, I don't do news.
Don't
in
you?
actual-
I
No,
love news.
Simply because a lot of the time news is an opinion, somebody else's opinion, and
what it's
whether they
become, hasn't
want you to believe, it's manipulation. And I prefer to read a book and fill my mind with knowledge that I actually want to learn. So news, and it's not like I don't know anything about the news. I just prefer not to know about politics and sport and sensationalism, which is just rubbish. I haven't got time
I
for
have
that.
a
I'd
nephew
rather
who
read a
tells
book.
me not to be seduced by the news. It's ridiculous. If you want real perspectives, do your own research.
Yeah. And it's a lot of it's just opinion.
Harry?
Well, I think everybody can be a reporter now with all the information that's out there, and our addiction to video and live content, just they can shoot up straight away. You know, you can be in the right spot at the right time, and all of a sudden, you know, you're there. You're the news.
You're the news.
You've got something that's had it. And I think that what's happened is that our old paradigm of what we thought news was is no longer news anymore. It's become more instant. Whereas before we would get reported, and I agree with you a bit, something would happen, it would be reported. Whereas now, almost as it happens, you're watching it. That's the difference.
Instantly.
Opinion.
Yeah, and forming an opinion. And not only that, you can chip in. You can tweet, you can, you know...
You can change
You
the
can
news
change the
in real
news or whatever.
time.
It's just the world's changed with it.
Everyone's an expert.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We asked you at home to answer this question for us. Is fake news the only news that sells now? Well, 22% of you only said yes. 78% said no. Isn't that interesting? You're believing what 78% of people are believing, that everything they read is real. We've got to go. We'll be chatting about it during the break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about us, the human race. People must die. Otherwise, there's no change in the world, apparently. It's a good letter coming up. Don't go away.
Although we are being cryogenically frozen as we speak.
I'm for sweet and sour. Right here on Sweet and Sour.
Lou, you're going to wrap up the show for us, and we're just organising who's going to be talking to this one. No, you're not. I'm Spartacus. Hi there, Sweet and Sour. I've worked for my company for 2 decades. The misogynistic so-and-so who was my terrible boss died last year, and he'd been at the company for over 30 years. He was an arrogant man who never changed and was an obstacle to any modernisation for his entire duration as the boss. The moment we had a younger person at the helm, the business came out of the time warp and began to bloom again. The short evolution has been amazing, and the size of the company, from my observation, has just exploded. It got me to thinking and writing to your show about the need for all people to move on. Imagine if we lived for 1,000 years, what would life be like? We'd still have people who believed in witches in charge. There'd be no change. I suddenly became a person who, after a lifetime of avoiding change, now embraces it and realises that change is the only way forward. Sure, we make mistakes, but we will overcome them too if we keep making changes. I have developed a bit of a morbid view and wondered if it's shared by your panellists. I'm delighted people don't live forever, because we too need to move on, and the next generation's new ideas must be allowed to flourish. So what old ideas do you think we should dispense with today? All this progress because my old awful boss wouldn't make any. Clyde of Prospect in South Australia. Susie?
Well, I really like this letter, I want to say. Clyde, don't you hate misogynists? We've all worked for them. They're just pricks. But anyway.
Well, the misogynist has been a catalyst for this lady.
Yes, I know. But is Clyde a female or a male?
Yes.
Male?
Oh,
Is it Clyde a female name? Is it?
No,
I've never
male.
met any.
Anyway,
I've never met any
sorry,
female
Clyde.
Clydes.
Clyde doesn't matter actually, because that takes me to my first point. You've said what are ideas that we can actually get to new ideas, and my first one is that men and women receive equal pay for equal work. That's my first one. The second one is that men and women equally share the responsibility for caring. That could be ageing parents, children, dogs, whatever. And then another one is that we acknowledge our First Nation people as that, first, and that we actually acknowledge them. And I think there's things obviously in the move for that, but we've got a long way to go. And the other thing which I wanted to think was that we actually go back is we use all this plastic and there's the war on waste. You think back to what your grandparents used to do. You know, they had the incinerator at the back, I know, but orchards, and we were like caring for each other, natural living. Let's go back to that. So throw away some things and bring back some.
I want to get rid of all men out of Parliament. We've dominated for a long
I don't know.
time.
I quite like you bit.
No, I don't want it balanced up. I want women for the next 100 years. Bid.
Clyde, you asked what old ideas could we dispense with. I've got a couple for you. The obligatory one wobbly wheel on supermarket trolleys. Look, we are better than this. We've been to the moon and we're going to Mars. You'd reckon that we could get from Woolies to the car park without jarring our teeth loose. Also, the next thing I want to get rid of is pretty much any machine that is on an endless loop on television that promises you rock-hard abs. And the third thing I want to get rid of is any pill, potion, superfood, regimen or science that promises easy or permanent miracle weight loss.
We asked you at home to answer this question for us. Is it a good thing that humans only live for a short time? And these were your answers. 63% of you said yes, it's a good thing. 37% of you still want to live forever. Straight to H. What do you got for us?
I reckon it'd be pretty cool to live for 1,000 years if you could pick the age that you wanted to stay at.
Oh, 238.
Yeah. That's too funny. Look, I think you just got to move on with it. I mean, people are people.
We do anyway. Change is slow.
Yeah, change is going to happen irrespective of whoever gets in the way.
We're lucky that people do move on.
We just keep evolving and moving on. And men behaving badly, especially old men behaving badly, as we all know, with all the things that are going on at the moment, their time is coming. That's history. The normal people that I hang around with are very respectful, and those old sort of misogynist type guys, they're just a thing of the past, and they're slowly
Dinosaurs.
going. They are.
Dinosaurs.
They're
You look
going
at
away, and like the
1950s magazines and you go, oh, wow, really? Those attitudes were prominent only,
yeah.
How long?
Crazy.
50, 60, 70 years
Crazy.
ago? Luanne,
Crazy.
last word to a woman.
There's plenty of devils that wear Prada. You know, it's not just it's not just limited to the attitude to men. And I think sometimes men get a little bit of a bad rap when it comes to you know, being archaic and stuck in the times. But we're going to move on. We're going to have progress and change.
It's going to happen anyway.
It's inevitable. So, but tradition.
Tilted.
It also has a place in society as well. So having a little bit of tradition in a company and how a company is started, yes, sure, that evolves, but that person that started in that company and wants to keep the tradition, you know, I think that we can hold on to that and embrace that a little bit as well.
We don't appreciate it, but we understand it.
Yeah, and really progress is progress, but if you could mix them both, it would be kind of...
Make some progress and say good night.
Okay,
We've got to
good
go.
night, bye.
We've got to go.
I saw 30 seconds.
30 seconds. That's what Vinny's telling us, 30 seconds. Thank you, everyone. Lovely to see you. Thank you for coming back this second week.
It was fun.
Big ask. We'll have you again.
Can you?
Well, do you want to come back next week too? Thank our wonderful panellists, thank our terrific crew, and thanks for having us at home tonight, Australia. Good night, everyone. This is it again. You've practiced at this bit. Good night. See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye. Harry's coming back.